What do you do when the person you trust most becomes your worst enemy? I begged my sister to help me carry a child when doctors said I couldn't. I thought I was asking for love, for family, for hope. But what she gave me instead was betrayal. So deep, it nearly destroyed me. She didn't just help me. She took my husband, carried his child, and smiled while I broke into pieces. And just when I thought nothing else could hurt me more, the DNA test revealed a truth that shook my entire world. Stay with me because what happened next will leave you breathless. My name is Emily Thompson, and if you had asked me 5 years ago who I trusted most in the world, I wouldn't have said my husband or my best friend or even my mother. I would have said one name without hesitation, my sister Claire. She was my anchor in every storm, my confidant in every heartbreak. We grew up in a quiet town in Ohio, 2 girls who shared secrets under blanket forts, who held hands on the first day of school, and who swore under the stars that nothing would ever come between us. But life has a way of testing promises, and some tests feel more like traps. I met Daniel, the love of my life, in college. He was kind, patient, the sort of man who listened with his whole heart. We married young, full of hope, dreaming of white fences and children with his blue eyes and my curly hair. But dreams have a way of turning into prayers, and prayers into silence. For 4 years, we tried to have a baby. 4 years of doctor visits, hormone shots, sleepless nights crying into Daniel's chest. 4 years of hearing, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson, it may not be possible." I felt broken, like my body had betrayed me. I plastered on smiles at baby showers, swallowed bitterness at friends' pregnancy announcements, and endured the well-meaning but cruel questions. When will you two have kids? Through it all, Claire was there. She held me when I sobbed, told me I wasn't less of a woman, and whispered promises like lullabies. If I could give you my womb, I would. Those words stayed with me. One night, after yet another failed treatment, I sat with Daniel, my heart heavy. What if we asked Claire? What if she carried our child? He hesitated, but he loved me too much to say no. The very next day, I drove to Claire's apartment, trembling with fear and hope. I expected laughter, or shock, or maybe even refusal. Instead, she took my hands, her eyes shining. Of course. If this is what it takes to make you a mom, I'll do it. For you. I cried into her shoulder that night, grateful beyond words. I thought God himself had placed her in my life as both sister and savior. The months that followed felt like a miracle. Doctors, contracts, injections. The day they implanted the embryo, I held Claire's hand and whispered, "This is the start of everything." When the test came back positive, I fell to my knees in the clinic bathroom, sobbing into my palms. For the first time in years, hope burned in me again. Claire was glowing too, walking around with a proud smile, her hand resting protectively over the life growing inside her. Family and friends celebrated, calling her an angel, a blessing. I believed it too. But sometimes blessings have shadows we don't see until it's too late. As the pregnancy went on, I noticed changes. Claire stopped updating me on doctor visits, brushed off my questions, and grew defensive when I asked to be more involved. You're stressing me out. Just let me do this my way," she snapped once, and I forced myself to back down. Daniel tried to reassure me. "She's doing something huge for us. Maybe she just needs space." I wanted to believe that. I had to. Then one evening, 5 months into the pregnancy, I dropped by Claire's apartment unannounced with a basket of maternity clothes I had bought for her. The door was slightly ajar, voices floating out. I froze when I heard my sister's laughter, light, almost mocking, and her words that followed. No, it's not Emily's baby. This is my baby. She thinks I'm just carrying it for her, but once she sees me holding him, she won't stand a chance. I deserve this. I deserve to be a mother too. My heart stopped. The basket slipped from my hands, the clothes spilling across the hallway floor. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My sister, the one I trusted most, was planning to steal the very thing I had prayed for all my life. And at that moment, as I stood trembling in her doorway, she turned her head and saw me. I stood frozen at the doorway, my chest tightening as Claire's words replayed in my head. This is my baby. She thinks I'm just carrying it for her, but once she sees me holding him, she won't stand a chance. Claire? My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. She turned slowly, her hand resting on her swollen belly, eyes wide like a child, caught stealing. For a second, her lips trembled, as if she might deny it. But then she straightened, her face hardening. You weren't supposed to hear that. Tears stung my eyes. So it's true? After everything? After what I've been through, you want to take my child? Her jaw clenched. I am the one carrying him, Emily. I'm the one throwing up every morning, the one whose body is changing. Everyone praises me. But when this baby comes, I'm just supposed to hand him over like a delivery package? Do you know how that feels? Was the agreement, I cried, my voice breaking. You looked me in the eye and said you'd do this for me. You promised, Claire. She looked away, her hand stroking her stomach tenderly. Maybe I thought I could. But things are different now. The room spun. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the doorframe to keep from collapsing. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see the years I had bled tears for a child. Instead, I whispered, "You're my sister." Her eyes flickered with something, guilt, maybe, but it vanished quickly. And I'm finally going to be a mother. You'll understand one day. Stumbled back into the hall, the basket of clothes still scattered across the floor. My vision blurred with tears as I ran to my car. My chest felt like it was splitting open. That night, I told Daniel everything. He sat in silence, his face pale, his hands gripping the armrests of the chair. When I finished, his voice was low, steady, but dangerous. We need to involve the lawyers. The contract. She can't just decide this. But I shook my head violently. She's my sister. If we drag her to court, this will destroy our family. Dad, Mom, they'll never forgive us. Emily, Daniel said, his voice firm now. If she goes through with this, you'll lose the baby forever. You can't fight blood with silence. I buried my face in my hands. I didn't want to believe it had come to this. I still wanted to believe Claire would change her mind, that maybe fear had driven her words. But 2 weeks later, my hope shattered again. Claire stopped answering my calls. She skipped appointments where I was supposed to be present. When I showed up at the clinic, I was told she had rescheduled without informing me, and then my mother called. Her voice was cheerful, almost giddy. Emily, your sister told me the good news. She's finally pregnant. Can you believe it? You're going to be an aunt. I nearly dropped the phone. My mouth went dry. Claire had told our parents it was her baby. Mom, I croaked. Did she say it's hers? Of course, Mom laughed softly. Why else would she be glowing like that? Oh, honey, you'll have your chance someday. Don't lose faith. The line went dead, and I stared at the wall, shaking. Claire wasn't just thinking about keeping the baby. She was already rewriting the story, erasing me from it. That evening, I drove to her apartment again. My hands trembled as I banged on the door. When she finally opened it, she looked annoyed. "Why are you here?" she snapped. "You told Mom," I hissed. "You told her this baby is yours." Her expression didn't even flinch. "Because he is." My knees went weak. "Claire, please, don't do this. Don't take from me the one thing I can't give myself." My voice cracked, tears streaming down my face. "You're not just stealing a baby. You're stealing my life." She crossed her arms, her face cold. "You'll survive, Emily. You always do. But me? I won't get another chance. This baby belongs with me." Something in me snapped. My hand flew before I could stop it, slapping her across the face. The sound echoed through the hallway, and for the first time, Claire's eyes filled with tears. But she didn't back down. She pressed a hand to her cheek, her breathing sharp, and whispered words that cut through me like a knife. "You'll never take him from me. I'll fight you with everything I have." And as I stood there, broken and trembling, I realized this wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was war. By the time Sunday rolled around, the gossip had already spread. At church, I could feel eyes on me. Women I'd grown up with smiled politely, but their whispers trailed behind me like shadows. "Such a shame. Her sister's expecting while she still hasn't. Well, at least the family will have a grandchild to celebrate. Maybe Claire's the chosen one after all." Each word cut like glass. I kept my chin high, but my chest ached as I watched Claire glide down the aisle, her hand resting proudly on her belly. She looked radiant, glowing, soaking up the attention that was supposed to be mine. When the pastor congratulated her during announcements, the congregation erupted in applause. And me? I sat stiffly beside Daniel, forcing a smile, nails digging into my palms until they left crescent marks. After the service, a neighbor patted my arm with a pitying look. "Emily, don't worry, honey. Your time will come. You'll be an amazing aunt in the meantime." Aunt. Not mother. Aunt. I excused myself before the tears could spill, locking myself in the restroom, muffling my sobs against the cold tile wall. Daniel found me later, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. "This is sick," he muttered. "She's parading around with our child like you don't even exist. I swear, Emily, if you don't let me handle this legally, No, I snapped, panic rising in my throat. "If we drag this into court, Mom will never forgive me. She already thinks Claire can do no wrong." And I was right. That evening, we gathered at my parents' house for Sunday dinner. The moment I stepped inside, the smell of roast chicken should have felt comforting, but instead the air was heavy, thick with unspoken tension. Claire was already there, sitting at the table, her hand on her stomach like a crown she refused to remove. Mom hovered around her, fussing, piling her plate high, making comments like, "You need to eat for two, darling." When I reached for a plate, Mom glanced at me and said softly, almost absent-mindedly, "Emily, maybe you should let your sister have the bigger portion. She's carrying." My chest tightened. Daniel shifted beside me, muttering under his breath, "Unbelievable." Dad tried to lighten the mood, but it was useless. Every conversation circled back to the baby. Mom asked about nursery colors, baby names, strollers. Claire answered proudly, her voice dripping with ownership. Not once did she glance my way. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. My fork clattered against the plate. Do any of you even remember why she's pregnant in the first place? This isn't her baby. It's mine. The table went silent. Mom's face hardened instantly. Emily, enough. This bitterness isn't healthy. Claire is the one pregnant. She's the one enduring the pain and risk. Show some gratitude. My mouth fell open. Gratitude? For stealing my child? Emily, Mom snapped, her voice sharp as a blade. Don't ruin this family over jealousy. If God didn't give you children, maybe He had other plans. The words knocked the breath from my lungs. It wasn't just Claire now. It was my own mother standing against me. Daniel slammed his napkin on the table. This is insane. You're all treating Emily like she doesn't matter. She matters, and so does the agreement Claire signed. Claire? Smirked faintly, her hand stroking her stomach. Paper doesn't change biology, Daniel. The baby grows inside me. I pushed back from the table, my chair screeching against the floor. I can't do this. My voice shook. I can't sit here and pretend while everyone cheers her on for stabbing me in the back. I stormed out before the tears could blind me completely. Daniel followed, but when I got to the car, I saw him pause at the door, his face twisted in a mix of rage and sorrow. Later that night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzed. Notification from Instagram lit up the screen. I opened it, and my heart nearly stopped. It was a photo of Claire, smiling proudly, holding an ultrasound picture. The caption beneath it read, "Meet my baby boy, arriving soon." And the worst part wasn't the photo. It was the number of likes and comments beneath it. Our friends, our family, our entire community celebrating with her, as if I never existed after. Claire's ultrasound post went viral among our circle of family and friends. My world collapsed piece by piece. I stopped going out. I stopped answering calls. Even grocery shopping felt impossible when strangers in the community congratulated me, not for becoming a mother, but for finally becoming an aunt. The words haunted me. Aunt. Not mother. Never mother. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, my body trembling from silent sobs while Daniel rubbed my back. I hated myself for not being stronger. I hated Claire for turning my deepest wound into her spotlight. One night, Daniel finally broke. Emily, I can't watch you like this, he whispered, his voice raw. He sat at the edge of the bed, his face buried in his hands. I feel like I'm losing you. Every day, a little more of you slips away, and I don't know how to bring you back. I sat up, my throat tight. I'm trying, Daniel, I swear. I'm trying. He turned to me, his eyes red with frustration. Then let me fight her. Let me take her to court, expose her lies. Anything. Because if you don't, she's going to destroy you. And us. I pressed my hands to my face. I wanted to say yes, to let him take control. But all I could hear were my mother's sharp words, echoing in my mind. Don't ruin this family over jealousy. What if fighting her ruins everything? I whispered. What if I lose the baby and my family? Daniel's shoulders slumped. He didn't answer. And that silence scared me more than anything. The weeks dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Claire didn't just hide anymore. She flaunted. She attended every baby store opening, every maternity event in town. Photos of her smiling with shopping bags full of baby clothes flooded Facebook. At church, she let people touch her belly, cooing over the baby's kicks. One Sunday, I walked in late and froze when I saw her standing at the altar as the pastor prayed for her and her miracle child. The congregation cheered, clapping, tears streaming down their faces. I slipped out before anyone saw me. Daniel chased after me, but I shoved him away, gasping for air. I can't breathe. I can't do this anymore. Depression crept into me like fog. I stopped writing, stopped cooking, stopped caring. Daniel came home one night to find me still in pajamas, staring blankly at the wall. The laundry piled up, dishes sat unwashed, and bills went unpaid. "Emily," he said softly, kneeling beside me. His eyes glistened. "You're disappearing. Please, don't let her win like this." I wanted to respond, but the words wouldn't. "Come." My throat felt locked, my chest hollow, and then came the final blow. Mom hosted a baby shower for Claire. Invitations went out to the entire family, neighbors, even old friends. My name wasn't on the planning list. I wasn't asked to help. When I walked in, the living room was filled with balloons, cake, gifts, and laughter. Claire stood in the center, glowing in a pink sash that read, "Mom to Be." Everyone clapped as she opened presents, tiny onesies, baby bottles, strollers. With each gift, my heart sank further. Then she held up a custom onesie that read, "Mommy's Little Man." Everyone cheered. Phones flashed. My mother kissed her cheek. I stood in the corner, invisible. No one even looked my way. No one remembered. This was supposed to be my baby. But when Claire caught my eye across the room, she smiled. Not a sister's smile, but a victory's. And then she placed both hands on her stomach and whispered just loud enough for me to read her lips. "He's mine." Something broke inside me the day of Claire's baby shower. Watching her smile under the banner "Mom to Be" while everyone clapped felt like being buried alive. The onesie that read "Mommy's Little Man" was the final nail. That wasn't just fabric. It was my child's identity being stolen right in front of me. When Claire whispered, "He's mine," across the room, something inside me snapped. I didn't wait for the party to end. I stormed out, Daniel on my heels. He called my name, but I was already in the car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. By the time we got home, my decision was made. "I'm done begging," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "She wants war? Then she'll get it." Daniel's eyes widened, then softened with relief. Are you saying—" "Yes. Call the lawyer." For the first time in months, I saw fire in his eyes instead of helplessness. He pulled out his phone immediately. The next few days were a blur of signatures, meetings, and strategy. Our lawyer reminded us we had a signed surrogacy agreement, ironclad and notarized. Claire had no legal right to claim the baby. But laws don't erase emotions, and this battle was no longer just about legality. It was about blood, pride, and the cracks in our family. When Claire received the notice, she didn't stay quiet. She called me, her voice icy. "So you really went there, huh? Dragging me into court like I'm some stranger?" "You left me no choice," I whispered. "No, Emily," she snapped. "You left me no choice. You had years to have a baby and you couldn't." I stepped up. "And now you want to rip him out of me like I'm just a vessel?" "I'm not giving him up." Tears filled my eyes. He's mine, Claire. He's Daniel's. He's not yours, she laughed bitterly. We'll see what the judge says. The line went dead. The war lines were drawn, and our family picked sides almost immediately. Mom called me, furious. How dare you drag your sister to court? Do you realize how humiliating this is? People are talking, Emily. You're tearing this family apart. No, Mom, I said, my voice cracking. Claire did that when she lied. She's carrying the baby, Mom shouted. Without her, you'd still be childless. Show some gratitude instead of spite. I hung up before my tears drowned me. Dad, however, reached out quietly. His voice was tired but soft. Emily, I don't agree with what Claire's doing, but dragging this to court? Are you sure you can handle what comes with it? I swallowed hard. I can't let her win, Dad. If I do, I lose everything. There was silence on the line before he whispered, Then fight, but be ready. The cost will be heavier than you think. As the hearing date approached, Claire went on the offensive. She began posting more photos online. Cribs, baby clothes, ultrasound updates. The captions cut like knives, counting down the weeks until I hold my baby boy. Mommy loves you already. People congratulated her in droves, completely unaware of the truth. I scrolled through the comments until my vision blurred, feeling myself unravel. Daniel took my phone and threw it across the couch. Stop torturing yourself. Let her play her games. The truth will come out soon. But I could see the strain on his face, too. He was breaking under the pressure, snapping at work, restless at night, pacing the floors like a man trapped in a cage. One night, he slammed his fist on the table. I swear, Emily, if she wins this, if she actually steals our baby, I don't know if I can stay in this town. I don't know if I can keep pretending this family is mine. His words terrified me. This wasn't just about the baby anymore. I was at risk of losing Daniel, too. Finally, the day came. We walked into the courthouse, hand in hand, hearts pounding. Claire was already there, sitting tall, her stomach round beneath her dress. She didn't look nervous. She looked victorious, like she had already won. When her eyes met mine, she smirked. And then before the judge even entered, Claire stood, pulled something from her purse and slammed it onto the table. A stack of papers. Our lawyer picked them up, his face paling. What is it? I whispered. He hesitated, then looked at me with horror. She's filed for custody, claiming Daniel isn't the father. The room spun as my heart dropped. If Daniel wasn't legally the father, then who was she saying was? And what game was my sister playing now? The words, Daniel isn't the father, echoed in my head like a gunshot. I stared at Claire, my chest tightening, my breath short. She was smiling as if destroying me was her form of victory. Our lawyer shuffled through the papers, flipping pages quickly, his face growing darker with every line. Finally, he whispered, She's claiming the embryo implanted wasn't Daniel's, but hers and Daniel's. I felt my body go cold. What? My voice cracked, sharp, desperate. Claire folded her arms, her smugness filling the room. Why don't you ask your perfect husband? Daniel shot up from his seat, fists trembling. That's a lie. Emily, don't you dare believe this garbage. The courtroom buzzed as people whispered, craning their necks to see the storm unraveling. Before the judge even arrived, I couldn't breathe. My sister, the same girl I shared clothes with, whispered secrets to under blankets, cried with when our parents fought, was now accusing my husband of sleeping with her. And worse, she was convincing everyone that the baby she carried was theirs. At home, the fight was brutal. How could she even come up with this? I sobbed, pacing the living room. Daniel, tell me she's not basing this on something real. Tell me she's making this up from thin air. Daniel grabbed my shoulders, his eyes bloodshot from stress. Emily, I swear on my life, I never touched Claire. I would never betray you like that. But his voice broke on the word never, and in my paranoia, it felt like a crack big enough for doubt to slip through. The gossip spread faster than wildfire. At the grocery store, people stared. Longer than usual. 2 women at the bakery whispered behind their hands until one of them caught my eye and looked away. Have you heard? One neighbor asked another as I walked past, pretending not to hear. That baby might not even be Emily's. They're saying Claire and Daniel. I dropped my basket and ran out, tears burning down my cheeks. That night, Claire posted another picture. This time it wasn't just her belly. It was her holding Daniel's old hoodie, smiling like it was a lover's gift. The caption read, "Sometimes love grows where it isn't supposed to. But love is love." The comment section exploded. Some people tagged me asking for the truth. Others congratulated Claire for her bravery. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing until I threw it against the wall. Daniel tried to hold me, but I pushed him away. I can't do this, I whispered. I can't fight her lies and wonder if there's even a tiny chance. He shouted over me, raw and broken. Emily, look at me. She's trying to destroy us because she knows the truth will ruin her. Don't. Let her win. But the seed of doubt was already planted, and Claire watered it with every smirk, every post, every calculated move. The next court session was worse. Claire's lawyer paraded her as a devoted mother-to-be, arguing she was emotionally bonded to the baby, while I, cold, desperate, infertile, was trying to rip a child from his true mother. When they presented her claim that she and Daniel had a private relationship, I nearly collapsed. Daniel leapt from his seat. This is insanity. She's my sister-in-law. Claire placed a trembling hand over her stomach and whispered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. But you'll always be the father to him. The judge banged his gavel, but the damage was done. The courtroom gasped. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled. And in that moment, I realized Claire wasn't just fighting me for custody. She was fighting to erase me completely. From my marriage, from my family, from my child's life. That night, I sat in the dark while Daniel paced the kitchen, muttering about appeals, defamation, and slander suits. But all I could hear was Claire's voice echoing in my head. Why don't you ask your perfect husband? My depression deepened. I barely ate. I barely slept. Some nights I sat on the bathroom floor, clutching the ultrasound picture, wondering if I even had the strength to go on. But then, I saw something that changed everything. Late one night, scrolling through Claire's social media, I noticed a detail in one of her photos. In the reflection of a mirror behind her, a man's hand was resting on her waist. A hand that wasn't Daniel's. I zoomed in, my heart racing. It was someone else, someone familiar, and when I realized who it was, my blood turned to ice. The man in the reflection wasn't Daniel. It was Jason, Daniel's best friend. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. That hand, that ring on the pinky finger? I'd seen it 1,000 times. Jason, Daniel's best friend since college. The man who had stood beside him at our wedding. the man who visited our home so often he felt like family. And now, the man holding Claire in a way Daniel never had. My breath came in shallow bursts. Was this the proof I needed? The crack in her perfect facade? Or was it just another trick of angles, something she'd deny until I sounded like a paranoid fool? But deep down, I knew. My sister wasn't carrying Daniel's child. She was hiding something darker. The next morning, I showed Daniel. He squinted at the photo, his jaw tightening. That looks like Jason's hand. It is Jason's hand, I snapped. Look at the ring. He never takes it off. And the watch. Daniel, you know it's his. This whole time she's been lying. The baby isn't yours. It's his. Daniel's face turned pale, anger and betrayal battling across his features. My best friend? He whispered. My best friend did this? I grabbed his arm. We can use this. We can prove she's lying. But Daniel shook his head, pacing like a caged animal. You don't understand. If Jason's really involved, it's bigger than just Claire's lies. It means she manipulated him, or worse, they both planned this. That evening, Daniel confronted Jason. I stayed in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Through the cracked window, I could hear their voices escalating. You've been sleeping with her? Daniel's voice was raw, sharp. Jason's reply was low at first, then louder. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. She told me things. She said you and Emily didn't deserve the baby, that she could give me the family I always wanted. I covered my mouth to stifle a scream. Claire hadn't just betrayed me. She had dragged Jason into her madness, promising him a life built on my pain. When Daniel stormed back into the car, his hands shook so hard he could barely start the engine. He admitted it, he said flatly. Emily, he admitted everything. The baby is his. Claire's been using him, and using me. I wanted to feel relief, but instead a new terror rose in me. If Claire realized we knew the truth, she'd only fight harder. And in court, truth wasn't always enough. The next custody hearing was chaos. Our lawyer presented the photo, questioning Claire about the reflection. She laughed it off at first, her voice sweet as honey. Really? You're dragging my personal photos into this? That's desperate, Emily. Pathetic. But then Jason was called to the stand. He avoided my eyes, avoided Daniel's. And when asked directly if he was the father of the child Claire carried, he hesitated just long enough. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits, eager to get the story out first. The judge had to call for order 3 times before silence fell again. Claire's mask cracked. Her hands trembled as she glared at me, her voice trembling with rage. You think this changes anything? You think this baby is yours? You'll never have him. She clutched her belly as if I was already ripping the child from her arms, and in that moment, I realized she wasn't going to give up. Not now, not ever. That night, Daniel collapsed into a chair, his face buried in his hands. We've got the truth, Emily. But she's unhinged. She's going to drag this out until there's nothing left of us. I touched the ultrasound photo still taped to the fridge. My child's tiny outline stared back at me. I couldn't lose him. But as I turned away, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it and froze. It was a photo of me sleeping, taken inside my own house. The caption read, "He belongs to me, and soon, so will you." The photo haunted me. Not just the image of myself sleeping, but the message beneath it. He belongs to me, and soon, so will you. It wasn't enough that Claire had stolen my peace. She wanted to break me piece by piece until nothing was left. I started double-checking the locks every night. I jumped at shadows in my own home. Even Daniel noticed. "Emily," he whispered one night, pulling me into his chest. "She's trying to scare you. That's what she wants. Don't let her win." But how could I not be afraid when my sister, my own blood, was turning into something I no longer recognized? It didn't take long before the gossip started. At the grocery store, 2 women from church pretended not to see me, their whispers cutting sharper than any knife. "They say her sister's carrying her husband's baby." "No, I heard it's Daniel's best friend." Either way, what a disgrace. My hands shook so hard I dropped the basket. The manager rushed over, but I could feel eyes on me everywhere, judging, dissecting, laughing. By the time I got home, I was trembling. Daniel tried to comfort me, but he was unraveling too. He'd stopped going out altogether. His business calls piled up unanswered. Some days, he wouldn't even eat. "Everywhere I go, people look at me like I'm a fool," he muttered one evening, staring at the floor. "Like I can't even control my own life." I wanted to remind him that none of this was his fault, but the truth was, it was destroying us both. Claire, on the other hand, was thriving. She showed up at a community charity gala in a shimmering dress that clung to her belly. Flashbulbs went off as she smiled, hands cradling her bump like she was carrying royalty. When I walked in with Daniel, the whispers started immediately. "There's the wife. She looks awful. No wonder he strayed." Claire saw me, and instead of looking away, she raised her glass. A smile, a taunt. A declaration of victory in front of everyone. Daniel's hand tightened in mine until it hurt. "Let's go." But I shook my head. I was done running. I stayed, forcing myself to smile through the humiliation, even as Claire paraded from table to table, basking in the glow of attention. That night, Daniel broke. He slammed his fist against the kitchen counter, the sound echoing through the house. "I can't do this anymore, Emily. I can't keep living like this, like she owns every part of our lives." Tears burned in my eyes. "And what about me, Daniel? Do you think I'm not breaking too? She's inside my head, inside my home. I can't even close my eyes without wondering if she's watching me." We stood there, 2 broken people, staring at each other in silence. The next morning, things got worse. I woke to find the ultrasound photo ripped from the fridge. In its place was a new one. Claire's latest sonogram. A sticky note was attached. "A real mother. A real heir." My knees buckled. I screamed so loud Daniel came running, grabbing the paper from my shaking hands. His face drained of color. "Chuck was in here again," I whispered. "She's been in our house, Daniel." He pulled me close, but his body was trembling. "This is war, Emily, and I don't know if we're strong enough to win." Later that day, I found myself sitting in the car outside my parents' house. I hadn't been there in weeks, but I needed answers. Inside, my mother barely looked at me. She fussed over Claire instead, who was lounging on the couch like a queen. "Emily," my mom said coldly, "you should try to understand your sister's condition. Stress isn't good for the baby." I laughed bitterly. "Her baby? Mom, that child isn't even Daniel's." But my father cut in, his voice weary. "Enough. You 2 are tearing this family apart. Do you think the whole neighborhood doesn't know? Do you think this shame doesn't fall on us too?" Claire smirked, sipping her tea. She didn't need to say a word. My own parents were already doing her bidding. I left before the rage boiling inside me made me do something I couldn't take back. That night, Daniel sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor. "We need to leave town," he whispered. "Start over somewhere else, away from her, away from this mess." I wanted to say yes, to pack a bag and run, but before I could answer, a loud thud echoed from the back door. We froze. Daniel grabbed a bat from the closet and crept toward the sound. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear. The door was cracked open. The cool night air seeped in, and on the kitchen table sat a blood-red envelope. Daniel opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. In Claire's handwriting, "If you leave, Emily, you'll never see the baby again." The blood-red envelope lay between us on the table like a curse. For hours, Daniel and I just stared at it, neither of us speaking. Finally, I broke the silence. "No more," I whispered, my voice trembling but sharp. "She doesn't get to control us anymore." Daniel looked up, his eyes tired but fierce. "Then we fight." The next morning, Daniel called, his lawyer. For the first time, we put Claire's name into official hands. Restraining order, trespassing reports, documentation of the harassment. "She's family," the lawyer said carefully, "so it won't be easy. But if you want her out of your lives, you'll need evidence and witnesses." We had plenty. Neighbors who saw her loitering near our home. My parents, whether they liked it or not. Even the community gossip could work in our favor. For once, it felt like we were pushing back. That Sunday, Daniel and I walked into church together. Heads turned, whispers swirled. Normally, I would have kept my eyes on the ground, but not this time. I held my chin high. Daniel's arm wrapped firmly around me, and when Claire strutted in, her bump on full display, I didn't shrink. I met her gaze and didn't look away. It was war, but this time, I wasn't the one trembling. After service, an older woman pulled me aside. "Don't let her win, child. Everyone sees what she's doing. She might fool some people, but truth always comes out." For the first time in months, I felt hope flicker, but Claire didn't take long to strike back. The next day, Daniel's boss called him into the office. He came home pale, fists clenched. "She told them I've been stealing funds," he spat. "She's spreading lies at my job, Emily. They're investigating me now." I felt sick. "But that's insane. There's no proof." Daniel slammed his hand against the wall. "Proof doesn't matter when it's your word against hers. She's poisoning everything I've built." It wasn't just our marriage anymore. She was coming after his livelihood, his reputation, his very identity. That night, I sat on the bathroom floor with my phone in my hand. I dialed Claire's number. She answered on the first ring, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Sister?" "Leave him out of this," I said, my voice breaking. "You want me? Fine, but stop dragging Daniel through your mess." Her laugh was cold. "Daniel was mine before he was yours, and soon everyone will know it." I nearly dropped the phone. "That's a lie." "Is it?" she whispered. "Ask him why he didn't want me at your wedding. Ask him what happened the night before." My chest tightened, my stomach turned. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but her words clung to me like poison. When I confronted Daniel, he froze. "Tell me it isn't true," I begged. tell me she's lying. His silence felt like betrayal. Finally, he whispered, "Emily, it wasn't what she's making it sound like. I swear, she came to me, drunk, desperate. I pushed her away. But I should have told you." Tears blurred my vision. "You kept this from me? All this time?" Daniel grabbed my hands, his voice breaking. "Because it meant nothing. Because I knew if I told you, she'd use it to destroy us. And now she is." I pulled away, my heart shattering. For the first time, I didn't know who to trust. The following week, things escalated again. Claire wasn't just spreading rumors now. She filed a motion in court, claiming Daniel was the father of her unborn child and demanding child support. The papers arrived in a thick envelope, dropped at our doorstep. I sat at the table, reading the words over and over until they blurred. Daniel paced, running his hands through his hair. "She's dragging us into court, Emily. She won't stop until she's ruined us completely." I looked at him, my voice trembling. "Then we fight her there, with everything we've got." The day before the first hearing, I walked into the kitchen to grab water. My hand froze on the fridge handle. Pinned to the fridge door was another ultrasound photo. But this one was different. The name scribbled across it in bold black ink wasn't. Claire's, it was mine. Emily Thompson, mother of baby boy. I dropped to my knees, my scream echoing through the house. Daniel came running, his face draining of color when he saw it. "She's not just trying to take you down," I whispered, shaking. "She's trying to erase me." The courthouse smelled like bleach and fear. My hands trembled as I clutched Daniel's, the ultrasound photo still burning in my bag like a brand. We sat in the waiting area, the air thick with whispers. Reporters hovered at the door. Neighbors craned their necks for a glimpse. It felt less like a hearing and more like a public execution. Claire swept in minutes later. She wore a flowing cream dress that framed her pregnancy bump, her hair curled to perfection, her lips painted blood red. She didn't look like a woman fighting for survival. She looked like a queen walking into her coronation. And when her eyes landed on me, she smirked. The judge called us in. We sat at separate tables, Daniel and I on one side, Claire on the other. "Case of Claire versus Daniel Thompson," the clerk announced. My stomach churned. Hearing our names side by side like rivals made everything real in a way that broke me. Claire's lawyer rose first. "Your Honor, my client is here today because she has been abandoned, humiliated, and left to raise a child on her own. That child, we contend, belongs to Mr. Daniel Thompson." Gasps rippled across the room. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table, his jaw tight. When it was our turn, Daniel's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, these claims are false and malicious. We intend to prove that Ms. Claire is weaponizing her pregnancy to destroy a marriage. Furthermore, we have documentation of harassment, threats, and repeated invasions of privacy." Claire's laugh rang through the courtroom. "Harassment? Please, I'm the one being bullied here. Look at me." She gestured to her stomach like it was Exhibit A. A woman carrying a child, while her own family turns their backs. She turned to the gallery, making sure every eye was on her. She wasn't just speaking to the judge, she was performing, and people were eating it up. Then came the bombshell. Her lawyer produced medical records, copies of blood tests. He slammed them down dramatically. These results show Daniel Thompson as the potential father of this child. The room erupted in whispers. My heart stopped. Daniel. shot up from his chair. That's impossible. I've never... The judge banged the gavel. Order in the court. I stared at the papers, my vision spinning, medical records, proof, or at least something that looked like proof. Claire's smirk widened. Still think I'm lying, sister? During recess, I couldn't breathe. I paced the hallway, tears blinding me. Emily! Daniel grabbed my arm, his voice desperate. She faked those results. She has to have. You believe me, don't you? I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the weight of months of lies, secrets, and silence pressed on me. Claire's words echoed in my head. Ask him what happened the night before your wedding. I pulled my arm free. I don't know what to believe anymore. Daniel's face crumbled. Don't do this, Emily. Don't let her win by breaking us apart. But in that moment, I wasn't sure if we were already broken. Back inside, the judge ordered a paternity test to be conducted officially under court supervision. The results would take weeks. Until then, the case was adjourned. Claire left the courtroom glowing, her hand caressing her bump as reporters swarmed her. She's playing you like a fiddle, Daniel muttered. But it wasn't her victory smile that haunted me most. It was the moment she brushed past me, leaned close, and whispered, You'll be dead before the results even come in. That night, sleep was impossible. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every shadow felt like her. I clutched Daniel's arm in bed, but even his warmth couldn't quiet the fear. The ultrasound photo, the fake medical records, the whispered death threat. She wasn't just fighting for attention anymore. She wanted me gone. Me first. I could hear the ticking of the clock in the courtroom, louder than my own heartbeat. Everyone was there. Family, neighbors, even people who had once whispered behind my back about my failure as a wife. The air was heavy with anticipation, the kind that presses down on your chest until you can barely breathe. I sat beside my husband, Daniel Thompson, his hand trembling in mine. He hadn't slept in days, and neither had I. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw clenched so tight I feared he might break a tooth. Across the room, Claire sat smugly, her pregnant belly pressed against the edge of the table as though it were her trophy. She smiled faintly when our eyes met, that same wicked curve of her lips that had haunted me for months. The judge cleared his throat and the entire courtroom silenced. The DNA results have been verified and sealed by the court. We will now reveal the findings. My nails dug into Daniel's palm. I whispered, No matter what, we face it together. He didn't answer, but the tear glistening in his eye said enough. The clerk unfolded the paper slowly, almost cruelly. My chest rose and fell rapidly as my heart pounded against my ribs. The DNA test shows with 99.9% certainty. The clerk's voice seemed to drag endlessly. Daniel Thompson is the biological father of Claire Williams's unborn child. The words slammed into me like a hammer to the chest. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs, some in shock, some in satisfaction. I felt my throat close, as though someone had shoved barbed wire down it. Daniel slumped forward, his face buried in his hands. He didn't even try to defend himself, didn't even look my way. Claire leaned back in her seat, triumphant, as though she had just won a war she'd been fighting all her life. I stood, my legs trembling but refusing to give way. Every pair of eyes turned toward me. Pity, judgment, curiosity, all staring. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the smugness off Claire's face. But my voice came out steady, almost too calm for the storm that raged inside me. "So it's true," I whispered, my words slicing through the silence. "Blood doesn't always make you family. Sometimes it makes you your worst enemy." Claire tilted her head, smiling wider. "Guess you'll finally have to accept it, Emily. Daniel was always meant to be mine." The courtroom exploded again. Shouts, whispers. Someone even gasped loud enough to echo. My vision blurred with tears, but I didn't fall apart. Not yet. I turned to Daniel, my Daniel, the man I had loved through everything, and whispered through clenched teeth, "You let her win. You betrayed me in the one way I could never recover from." He reached for me, but I pulled away. The distance between us was more than physical. It was permanent, carved into our souls now. And as the judge banged his gavel, declaring order, I knew the real war wasn't over. The truth had only armed us with weapons. Claire had won the battle, yes, but I would make sure she never won the war. I don't remember walking out of the courthouse. My body moved, but it wasn't me inside it. It was like I had floated above myself, watching a broken woman stumble through whispers, camera flashes, and pointed fingers. Daniel Thompson trailed behind me like a shadow, his face pale, his suit wrinkled, his spirit shattered. He tried to touch my arm, but I yanked it away. If he had been fire, I was gasoline, and one spark from him would have burned me alive. Outside, the autumn wind bit at my skin. I stood on the courthouse steps, my knees shaking, and stared at the crowd gathering around Claire. She was glowing, almost radiant, her hands resting proudly on her swollen belly as neighbors congratulated her. As if carrying my husband's child was an achievement worth applause. Someone in the crowd whispered too loud, "Emily lost everything. Poor thing." I turned my head, my teeth clenched so hard I thought they'd crack. Daniel finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Emily, please." "I didn't mean—" "Don't." I cut him off, my voice sharp as glass. "Don't you dare stand here and say you didn't mean it. You meant every touch, every lie, every night you betrayed me in her arms." He flinched as though I had slapped him. His eyes glistened, but no tears fell. I almost wished they would. Maybe if he cried, I could believe he still had a soul left. I turned and started down the steps. Every step felt like dragging chains behind me. But halfway down, Claire's voice rang out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Emily!" she called, sweetly like sugar poured over poison. "Don't worry. I'll raise this child better than you could ever imagine. After all, it's a Thompson." The crowd chuckled nervously, some gasped, and a few even smirked. Daniel's fists clenched, but he said nothing. I froze. My heart hammered so loud it drowned out the world. In that moment, I realized Claire didn't just want my husband, she wanted my dignity, my name, my life. And she was parading it in front of me. That night, silence filled our house. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, while I stood by the window, staring at the dark street below. My reflection in the glass didn't look like me anymore. It looked like a stranger hollowed out by betrayal. "Say something," Daniel whispered. "Please. Yell at me, hate me, just don't shut me out." I laughed bitterly, a sound that didn't belong to me. "Shut you out? Daniel, you were gone the moment you chose her." He stood, desperation in his eyes. "She doesn't mean anything. You're my wife, Emily. You're my heart. I'll fight to make this right." I turned, finally meeting his gaze. You gave her a child, Daniel. That's not something you erase with apologies. That's forever. That's the kind of betrayal that rewrites a woman's soul. The silence stretched until the walls themselves felt heavy with it. I walked past him, brushing his arm without a glance, and left the room. I slept on the couch that night, curled up with nothing but my own tears, but Claire wasn't finished. 3 days later, there she was again, parading her pregnancy at a community event, smiling for photos, basking in the whispers of, "That's Daniel Thompson's baby." She looked untouchable, victorious. I avoided her eyes, but she didn't avoid mine. She walked straight up to me, her heels clicking like bullets. "You look pale," she said, feigning concern. "Stress doesn't look good on you, Emily. You should rest. Let me handle Daniel." The venom behind her words sank deep into my skin. My hands trembled, but I refused to let her see me break. Instead, I leaned in close, my voice a whisper only she could hear. "Enjoy this spotlight, Claire, because when it ends, it will burn you alive." For the first time, her smile faltered, and in that tiny crack in her confidence, I saw it. The war hadn't been decided yet, but the fear was there too. The kind of fear that makes you question whether you'll survive what comes next. The envelope lay on my kitchen table like a loaded gun. Plain, white, harmless to anyone else. But to me, it was poison. I hadn't seen who slipped it under the door. By the time I opened it, the hallway was empty, the night eerily quiet. My hands trembled as I pulled out the photograph inside. Daniel Thompson, Claire, at the hospital. Her hand was curled tightly around his, her face glowing as though she had already won. His face, God, his face was soft, gentle, almost protective. The photo was dated 2 weeks before the trial, 2 weeks before he swore he hadn't seen her. My chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. The truth wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was mockery. I pressed the photo to my chest, my knees giving way as I sank to the floor. The tiles were cold against my skin, but not as cold as the emptiness spreading inside me. "Emily?" Daniel's voice came from the stairs. He walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes as though he'd been awake for hours. He froze when he saw me clutching the photo. His face drained of color. Where did you get that?" His voice was hoarse, panicked. I looked up at him, tears streaking down my face, but my voice was steady, sharp like a blade. "So it's true. You lied even when you were standing next to me in court." Daniel stepped closer, his hands raised as if approaching a wounded animal. "Emily, please. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you more. Claire called me. She said she was bleeding. I went to check on her. That's all." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "That's all? Do you hear yourself? You left your wife drowning in pain to comfort the woman who ruined our marriage, and you call it that's all?" He dropped into a chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, I saw him break, not just guilty, not just ashamed, but broken. His voice cracked like a man unraveling. "I don't know how to fix this, Emily. I've lost myself. I've lost us. He cut off, his body shaking with silent sobs. I should have felt something. Pity, rage, maybe even a flicker of love. But all I felt was exhaustion. A deep, heavy weariness that wrapped around my bones. I stood, clutching the photo, and whispered, "You didn't just lose us, Daniel. You buried us." I walked out of the kitchen, leaving him hunched over the table, his tears dripping onto the cold wood. The next morning, the photo still burned in my hand. I couldn't eat, couldn't think. My reflection in the mirror scared me. Sunken eyes, pale skin, a woman aged by grief. I knew I was on the edge of something dangerous. That afternoon, the whispers started again in town. Claire at the market, showing off baby clothes. Claire laughing at the salon, telling anyone who'd listen that Daniel couldn't resist her. And then, Claire at church, standing tall during the service, hand resting proudly on her belly while Daniel sat 2 rows ahead of me, unable to meet my eyes. Everywhere I went, there she was, not just flaunting her pregnancy, but parading my humiliation like a trophy. 9. Evening, I snapped. I walked into our bedroom where Daniel sat, staring at nothing. My voice shook, but it carried fire. I can't live like this anymore. I can't breathe while she flaunts what she stole, while you hide behind guilt. If you won't fight, Daniel, I will. He lifted his head, his eyes red, his voice broken. Fight how? I held up the photo. My hands no longer trembled. The world needs to see what's really happening. Claire wants a war? Then I'll give her one. Daniel's face paled. Emily, if you expose her, it won't just ruin her. It'll destroy me too. I leaned closer, my whisper cutting through the air. You destroyed yourself the moment you chose her. And with that, I walked out, into the night, into the storm, into the war I never asked for but could no longer avoid. I used to think betrayal was the worst wound a heart could endure, but I learned betrayal is only the spark. What follows is the wildfire, the whispers, the stares, the community gossip that makes every step outside feel like walking into a courtroom. When the DNA results went public, I thought the worst was behind me. I was wrong. That was just the beginning. Claire became unrecognizable. She painted herself the victim everywhere she went, crying on social media, parading her baby around in church like a shield, daring anyone to judge her. But instead of sympathy, she got scorn. I'll never forget the day in the grocery store when she blocked my path, her eyes red, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You think you've won, Emily? She spat, loud enough for everyone to hear. You think wearing Daniel's ring makes you better than me? This isn't over. Not until you've lost everything, too. I stood there holding bread and milk, forcing my trembling hands to stay still. For the first time, I saw her for what she had become. Not my sister, not even a rival, but a woman devoured by envy. And envy is the cruelest prison. If Claire was unraveling, Daniel Thompson was collapsing. His name, once respected in town, was now a stain. Men avoided him, women whispered behind his back, children pointed when he walked by. He grew bitter, restless, snapping at small things. One night in our kitchen, he turned to me with eyes full of rage and shame. You didn't have to drag this to court, he said. You humiliated me. Us. I let out a hollow laugh. Us? Daniel, you humiliated yourself the day you chose Claire over me. I only dragged the truth into the light. He collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, I saw not the liar, not the cheat, but a broken man crushed by his own choices. But I felt nothing. No pity, no love, just emptiness. And strangely, emptiness felt like freedom. It was a Thursday night when it happened. The streets were quiet as I walked home, the moon casting long shadows. My steps echoed until they didn't, until I heard another pair behind me. Fast, uneven. I turned. Claire. Her face was pale, her hands trembling inside her jacket. There was madness in her eyes, the kind born from too many sleepless nights and too much bitterness swallowed whole. "If I can't have peace," she whispered, her voice shaking, "neither will you." My blood ran cold. "Claire," I said softly, raising my hands, "please listen to yourself. You have a child." "Don't talk about my child," she screamed, pulling something out of her jacket. For a terrifying moment I thought it was a weapon. But it was a bottle, shattered liquor, sharp glass glinting in the light. Her voice cracked. "You stole everything from me. Daniel's name, his child's future, my dignity. You think you've won, but I'll make sure you never smile again." She lunged, the world blurred, her scream, my cry, the glass flashing as it flew. Instinct took over. I shoved her away, the bottle slipping from her hand, shattering on the ground. She stumbled, her knees buckling, sobbing uncontrollably. And in that moment, I didn't see my enemy. I saw my sister, broken, bleeding inside, destroyed by her own envy. Neighbors rushed out. Someone called the police. Within minutes, flashing lights painted the street red and blue. Officers pulled Claire up, her wrists trembling as the cuffs locked in place. I'll never forget the way she looked at me then, not with hatred, but with hollow emptiness. The fight had drained out of her. She wasn't a villain anymore, just a woman who had lost everything to jealousy. Daniel arrived. Shortly after, his face pale as stone. He didn't look at me. He didn't even look at Claire. He just stared at the broken glass on the ground, as if it mirrored the ruins of his choices. The officers asked if I wanted to press charges. My lips trembled, my heart heavy. "No," I whispered. "I just want this to end." And in that moment, I knew forgiveness wasn't for Claire, it wasn't for Daniel, it was for me. In the weeks that followed, gossip still buzzed, people still stared. But I walked taller, stronger, because I had survived. I learned something through it all, something I'll carry for the rest of my life. Betrayal may break you, envy may destroy families, and lies may tear apart entire lives. But truth always stands. And when the dust settles, it isn't about who won or who lost. It's about who learned, who grew, who refused to let pain turn them into what they hated. As for me, I may have lost my sister and my husband, but I gained something far greater, myself, and that was worth everything. If you were in Emily's shoes, betrayed by your own sister, humiliated by the man you loved, and left to face the world's whispers, what would you do? Would you choose forgiveness and walk away with your dignity? Or would you fight back and make them pay for every tear they caused you? Drop your thoughts below. I'll be reading every single comment. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next emotional story that could change the way you see love, family, and betrayal.